Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the BuzzStream podcast. My name's Nero. I'm your host, and today I am thrilled to be joined by Chris Brencans. He is the CEO of OnTheMap.com. OnTheMap, it's a local digital agency, local search marketing agency, I should say. But Chris is on here today. We're going to be talking really around that idea of building links in local markets. I don't know too much about local search, so I figured let's bring in an expert. So thanks so much, Chris, for being here.
Vince, it's quite a pleasure being here. BuzzStream is such a well-known brand, and to be on your podcast, I feel like we've made it. That's good to hear.
But yeah, today you are the expert. So one of the reasons I wanted to reach out to you, I think, is this idea that in the US, I'm feeling that digital PR itself, link building broader, but digital PR seems to be called like a comeback, but it's definitely growing. And I feel like a lot of people have been doing link building lately, but maybe they haven't been calling it digital PR, and it just has a different name in the US. Regardless, the idea that there are so many local angles that we can take in the US that really kind of should open the door for a lot more people to do digital PR and get more out of this. But I think it's just tough to understand how the local markets work. So I want to start with this idea that in 2024, there were these massive changes, right? In SEO, algorithm changes, all kinds of stuff. And like I said, I don't know a ton about local. Let's start a little bit there. Was local search impacted at all by any of these algorithms?
So I'd say local search didn't get impacted as much as other industries. Particularly, we still have local map rankings, and that's what drives a lot of results in local search. We're competing not just only for the traditional listings. The bigger task is to rank in the map results. And that requires more multifaceted approach. That's why SEO is such a complex game. You can be e-commerce SEO and you can be local SEO. For e-commerce, you have to worry about product listings. In local SEO, you need to worry about map listing. So each SEO site has its own unique angles. However, the algo updates, they did impact some of the traditional listings, a lot more AI overviews. However, it wasn't such a big impact like it was for a bunch of affiliate sites getting wiped out. The players that were big in local space stayed big, but I contribute that to the fact that the number of big players in smaller markets are already big players there, versus being an affiliate in some e-com vitamin space where you have only number of big players and everyone else gets wiped out.
Right.
In local, it wasn't such a big spectrum because there's a lot more bigger players in these smaller markets. And I can speak more on home services, legal, medical. Those are big verticals where we're spending a lot of time, especially legal and home services. So big brands that are known in certain markets, these algo updates didn't really make any impact on them. They're already known there, so Google's ranking what they know that's being searched. But we'll get into some of those brand elements probably after some of your other questions.
Yeah, I guess the kind of good follow-up to this would be, how do links play a part in local SEO?
Links play a big factor, just like in SEO in general. But here it is the prominence factor, right? So even if you want to rank in map results, you're going to need reviews, you're going to need the trustworthiness, and that comes with the prominence of whether you have any big brand authority links coming back to your site. Do you have some local links coming back to your site? And the best way to describe this is just think about any big brand you can imagine in your local market. Wherever are you from, Vince? I forgot.
I'm in Connecticut right now.
Connecticut. So just think about some big brand in Connecticut that everyone knows. And what is the lead profile that big brand has? So it's a combination of them advertising in the local market for the last 20 years. They have press mentions. They have every directory. They're also listed on local sites because they do a lot of community outreach. That's the ideal natural link profile that you want to have to dominate competitive local search results.
So it is still the same strategy of just understanding what your competitors are doing and trying to match or outdo them, really?
For the most part, yeah.
It's just in different areas, maybe.
Yeah, and the thing with local is it varies so heavily from city to city, from Connecticut to Miami to New York. The smaller the city and the less competitive the service that you're advertising, let's say New York personal injury lawyer versus Connecticut swimming classes. It's such a huge gap there. So
Yeah.
also the link profiles that you'll need in each segment will be massively different that you need to go after. So the New York personal injury lawyer will need the big media mentions, every possible local link they can get. They will need to appear on news because the top ranking lawyers are doing that. They're actually publicly known figures. So if you want to beat them, you need to be able to replicate that. And that's the interesting part. What I think you're referring to is saying, wow, I'm noticing a lot more digital PR activity in US. Big brands, they're always been doing that. But now what's happening, the lower market is now coming upstream saying, hey, the guest posts we've been doing are not working anymore. We need a way to catch up with the big players that are just naturally gaining this. They do some big media campaigns. For instance, there's a big Detroit attorney, Mike Morse. So he did NIL sponsorship deal with a bunch of Michigan football team players, and they're appearing on his billboards. They're appearing in his TV ads. Links just naturally come to those type of advertising efforts. So that's who you're up against. So you want to replicate his authority and prominence, you need to tap into some creative ways. And that's where we help our clients figure out what is this middle ground. You still want to compete with him, but you don't have such advertising budget yet. There are creative ways like digital PR to still build a link profile. So you could beat him, maybe not one-to-one on every single keyword, but finding certain pockets where he's not as strong. And then you can take some ground away from him.
Yeah, that is one of the things I do like about digital PR. Like you said, it's a level playing ground. If you have a good story, I don't think a journalist is necessarily going to be picky, whether you're a super well-known lawyer or a super small lawyer in New York City or something. It just really depends on the story. So I do like that about digital PR. And then with most journalists I've spoken to, they echo the same thing where the story is king. It doesn't necessarily matter unless you're super far off. If you're a plumber pitching a story about whatever football or something, like that might not make sense. But even in some of those cases, that's happened. The journalists that don't have time don't necessarily seem to care about some of those. But yeah, okay. I think a good segue now would be to just talk about some of these strategies that you're starting to mention. Because let's get into some of the link building strategies for local businesses that either you've seen employed or maybe some of the stuff that you guys are doing on the map.
Yeah, actually, it's been a very fun learning experience for myself. At OnTheMap, we've always been big believers in building in-house, whether it's tools, teams, we just go head first. So I've worked with a lot of vendors in the past, but then we took on the challenge to actually build our own team. So I've been very thankful experiencing this. Year one was painful experiences learning, and actually big shout out to Mark Rose. We hired him as a consultant to just come in and kind of help us show the ropes because we're just going ourselves, and it was like literally walking in the woods without any compass, nothing. Just we almost hit a point where we stopped believing in digital PR, but then I heard Mark and he's, oh guys, we got to clean up. And the big learnings from Mark, and then we'll go further like where that journey has taken us. Big learnings with Mark initially was that you need to be really targeted when it comes to pitching your story to the journalists. And I think our starting point in this journey was data-driven campaigns. And I think it's easier for everyone to understand what that concept is. So we started doing data-driven campaigns, and first most successful campaign was Unhealthy Estates of America. And this is for personal injury attorney that actually focuses a lot on different type of medical type of malpractice cases as well. So for them, unhealthy estates, medical malpractice works pretty well together.
Yeah.
You might start thinking like, oh, will this align locally? In ideal scenario, and we actually had a scenario like this, a data-driven campaign showed that the worst state was the state where our client was in. So that's where we could get the most links. In unhealthy states, it wasn't the case. The clients in Indianapolis, they weren't far off, so it was still good. But what Mark opened our eyes to was saying, hey, so your ranking is 49 states. So you have the worst states and the best states. Journalists want to talk about the worst. Find the states that are the worst and now tell them, oh my God, your state is the unhealthiest state in America. And guess what? Journalists pick it up. They're like, yes, great. Something not right about it. And that was such an eye-opening experience for us, understanding that data without story really doesn't do anything. But if you can put it in perspective and craft that message in your email with the quote, with the screenshot, just lay it on in front of them saying, hey, pretty much hit publish, you'll succeed. Now, that was the starting point. Then we brought in our digital PR director, and she has learned tremendous things to me and basically told me, like, all right, Chris, now get out of the way. Carl's in this. She's amazing. She was one of the first employees at Rise at 7 in US. Now she's leading our department. And so the way she's structuring our workflow is 3-dimensional. We do reactive PR, expert commentary, and data-driven campaigns. Obviously, the data-driven campaigns is like a slower moving target, right? It takes time to develop them, but then you can pitch them for a while. The reactive PR and expert comments, it's almost like a daily monitoring that's happening. We have Slack channels just blowing up. So one team is monitoring social media trends, and they're trying to pick up different interesting things that now we can connect with our clients saying, hey, here's our client talking about certain social media trend that's happening. I'll give you some funny examples that we were able to land links on. For one of our clients, there's a but a news piece about Sephora makeup tester warning. So if you're using the Sephora testers in Sephora stores, they actually have bacteria and could be bad. So we landed our client a link on newbeauty.com, which is DR78. It was just his comment on, hey, this is a trend. These are things people talking about on social media. Then more current events that were happening. For one of our clients, we got our links for daylight saving times and car crash risks. So there's daylight savings. When it happens, the darkness comes out earlier. So people are still tired in the morning, so chances of getting in accidents actually increases. So we put super simple, quick data together, and she got 5 news stories, like actual news segments that she was on TV, and her brand was getting picked up by these Fox 22, Penn Live, Las Vegas Review Journal. And it was, again, this kind of just monitoring of what's happening in news and aligning our client with that news story. This way, journalists sees the connection. They're like, wow, okay, actually, this is an interesting trend. We can do something with this. Let's bring this person on.
And can I, Chris, real quick too, to jump on those 2 examples you gave. So with the first one, Sephora, is the expert, how do you make that connection? Because I know you have a lot of local plumbers and lawyers, like you said, like dentists, that kind of thing. So are you just looking for, do you have a feed that's, here's all our plumbing related topics, or is it more, here's what's going on? How can we, okay, this might work for our plumbing client. And this is the angle we take. Okay.
Yeah. So the TikTok Sephora one was just because personal injury attorneys deal with different type of either medical malpractice. In this case, this attorney also does consumer protection. So in this case, we just pitched a quote from him. And here's the quote was, a real threat to health and safety. Mike Eggers, managing partner and personal injury lawyer at 844C Mike, issued a word of caution to impressionable TikTok users. So that's just one. And there's a couple other ones. So we had another funny one was, actually, this is a really funny one. Not really funny for us, but there was a TikTok trend where people would do it was called bathroom sync. trend where people would like pretend like they're standing on bathroom sinks. So we issued a warning from our same attorney that actually by doing that, you can really, not that it's common sense, but you can really hurt yourself. I'll send you the links after this, but
It's a good one for plumbers too, probably, right?
actually, yeah, you totally could have. And it was the experts warn viral bathroom mirror TikTok trend could land you in hospital.
Yeah.
It's common sense, but
I feel like I've seen a lot of those. Yeah, you're like lighting up. I don't know if it's just because I just had some coffee or because these are giving me some good ideas, but I feel like the trick here is just finding what, like you said, like simplifying, but finding that newsworthy thing. And a couple of the ones you're saying, it's like leaning into the emotion of like worst cities, like that's going to draw some emotion out of the journalist. This, like the fear of falling or that kind of outrage of these TikTok trends and like how dangerous they might be. I feel like if you're looking out for that kind of stuff, you're going to do well. Digital PR.
It sucks. My wife's, I don't want to watch news because it's only negative news stories, but that's to an extent, that's what news is. And so you have to just hone in on it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
If you look at some of the other examples I have here for you, even the data-driven one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Road rage capitals of US. This answers your initial question. How do you build links for boring niche and in a local area? So in this case, this client is in Texas. Actually, number one road rage capital is Houston. So it perfectly matched up because they're a statewide personal injury firm.
Right.
And this campaign landed 15 links and 200 syndicated links. So it was a very solid campaign compared to just trying to build guest posts and going that whole old type of. To me, that's wasted time, wasted resources. For highly competitive markets, this is the stuff you need to do because you're competing against Mike Morse and the likes that are just running TV ads and doing all just real life viral campaigns. They're at Michigan football games, hanging out with football players, getting just natural press mentions. So if you want to compete with that, you somehow have to replicate it. But if you can do, let's say, one data-driven campaign a month, and you can launch reactive PR campaigns, and you end up landing like 10, 15 high authority links each month. And even though some of them will be repetitive, plus you have syndicated links, you do that for a year, I would put ourselves next to that big spender, and you're spending fraction of that money. Obviously, you're focusing maybe just on SEO and PPC versus someone who's doing a lot more traditional ads. Then the next battle is going to be the brand search volume because Google's going to recognize that they're searched more than you are. But now at least you have these high authority links to showcase that, hey, I have prominence too. I am being recognized in news, only I'm spending fraction of the money he's or she's spending to build a similar authority and gain those type of rankings and recognition in competitive serves.
Yeah. I want to get into some of the, like the guest posting stuff and a couple of these other tactics. But before I do, I want to make sure if someone's listening, they're a local brand, they're a dentist or something, can you help break down kind of the step-by-step? So say you see a trend, say it is some TikTok trend. Is it just a matter of asking, what can I say about this? How do I connect? If it's eating some weird food or something, and maybe it's a dentist who's dentist. And then what are the next steps? Is it like, okay, I just need to formulate a quote and then find a relevant journalist? Is that kind of all that there is to it?
Yeah, it definitely is both. One, you need to position yourself as like, why would they care about your opinion? So it is expert, and you're combining the reactive and expert commentary in this approach, which is clever. And then you need to find journalists that write about, they have written about something similar. And there's a ton of like search operator little tricks you can use. Mark Rolfe has a whole playbook on that. So then you have to get into building your journalist list, and then you pitch them. You have to find their email and you have to write a clever note. How is that going to work? It's a grueling process. And that's why links are so valuable, because The stuff you can buy is not really working anymore. But to craft a list of 100 journalists and find this topic and then pitching them and then realizing, oh man, crickets, no one cares. That's also when you meet a little bit of pre-existing relationship with these journalists too.
Yeah.
Because what's starting to happen with our, let's say, the Hateful for Mike, now he's getting recognized as this guy who's commenting on different viral trends and pitching journalists, because next pitch we put out on his behalf, we're already listing, hey, oh, by the way, Mike's been quoted already here.
Yeah.
Or if we have a journalist or if we have a client that's been on news segments, when we pitch them, we're like, oh, by the way, was on this news segments. So now they're like, wow, okay, they look really good on camera. Oh, wow, this is not a brand new persona. They have a real expert opinion. Let's bring him on. And this is just an added benefit, but I love doing this for our clients. Whenever we get those publications, we're able to put them on their site saying, I've seen it. Attorneys,
And started. Yeah.
I'm seeing in all these news segments, but it's
The
true.
little trust signal. Yeah.
And it helps conversions when someone lands on their site. Who they want to talk to? Someone that's actually been on news. It's huge. People connect with those big brands. They start associating you with that big brand.
Yeah, that's really key. And I love that connection there to the site and maybe even the bottom line, right? Like you're utilizing some of these relationships you've made and these links in other places. Maybe you can create a reel or something for yourself of all the spots you might have gotten on TV. Because some of these reactives can lead to, or these expert commentaries can lead to actual TV.
The daylight savings time. We got 5 actual news reels for our client.
Well, that's got to be killer.
That's just that one pitch.
And then that one was more like daylight savings time was occurring, and then you went and found a statistic that tied into that and then pitched that statistic.
Yeah. It wasn't like a big data-driven campaign. It was just, hey, this is something we can connect the dots. Let's do it.
Yeah, I love that. It doesn't have to be such a big thing. Yeah. Okay, so you touched on the reactives, the expert commentary, the bigger data-driven studies.
Yes.
What else are you doing for clients to build links? Are directories still a thing?
Yeah, directories work, and I don't call that really link building. That's more third-party site management, if you like. They're common, and it's super important local SEO. We have a whole department that worries just about citations, because if you're an attorney trying to add additional attorney on one of the legal directories, it's a whole process because they need to approve your bar number and they need to confirm it. The clients need to get on a call. Like there's a verification process that it's a little bit of a pain, but that's minor. It's just regular processes. But one more kind of evolving thing that's happening in local SEO is community outreach and just participation in community events, because Google wants to see some local signals that you're a real brand in some city. And interesting things that some attorneys are doing, not just attorneys, right? Just work with attorneys. So that's the first vertical I go to. But there's a ton of, it equally applies to home services or any local based business, dentist for that matter. Different little charity events could be turkey drives. If you're doing a turkey drive, letting all your local newspapers know that, hey, on so-and-so day, you're going to be giving a turkey giveaway. So then they can promote your turkey giveaway. They're not really going to say, hey, oh, let me charge you for promoting this because it's a charity. You're giving away. Other clients also are doing similar like school drives, backpack giveaways. So that's an easy pitch for your local news stations. Another really good one is when big holidays are coming up, free Uber rides to avoid drinking driving. So you announce it, hey, we're doing Uber ride giveaways. Go to our website and here's the links. And you pitch that to a bunch of journalists, and then they're all going to be linking back to your Uber drive page so they can claim the Uber rides. Realistically, not even that many people claim them. but it's a good way to promote some good cause and
Yeah.
get links in return.
Yeah. It's so funny because what that sounds like is just like such obvious, like PR marketing stuff. But I feel like, and myself included, like SEOs, it's so easy to get tunnel vision with the stuff you're doing,
Yeah.
right? And you don't think about some of the obvious things. And it's also funny thinking about how people will go to, like scholarship link building. That was a big thing. It's like you create a scholarship, and then that's along the lines of the same thing you're talking about, but it got spammed to death. It got
Oh,
taken over by the link building army.
but yeah.
I think getting back into that mindset might benefit a lot of SEOs and a lot of businesses where you're thinking about it on a personal level. It's like, what can I do with Turkey Drive? Sponsor even a 5K or something. You get that,
Yeah.
you get a link on that page and the association with the local businesses. And that's all semantically going to help you in the long run.
That's what's happening in local search. Because I want to go back to the point I made earlier. You're competing. Usually the brands winning are ones that's been around for a long time or are spending the most money. And what they're doing, they're just everywhere. They're doing the traditional advertising that's been working for them. They were one of the first ones with billboards, one of the first ones with TV ads, one of the first ones with radio ads. And they have this cash flow. And what else they're going to do? Then they're all in community. They have dedicated teams to be in every community event out there, just continuously promoting the brand. Then what else can we do? Okay, let's throw concerts. People throw concerts. That's also find a popular singer, promote the concert. So-and-so attorney Vince Nero is doing a concert with, I don't know, Alicia Keys. It's a big thing, and it's a charity concert. It doesn't cost anyone any money. And what's happening, you're getting this organic press, and you're actually bringing the community together if you pull it off. It's SEO becomes a lot more non-SEO as it becomes a grassroots marketing.
Traditional marketing, yeah.
But in local, you have to do that now, especially in the highly competitive spaces. The less competitive, you can get by with local directories, couple authoritative links, maybe do a couple community events. Or another easy thing to do, and this is nice, this is actually, again, charity, sponsor every possible local youth sports team, soccer, basketball, volleyball, churches, humane societies, fire workers, police. The ideas never end because there's just so many local organizations that will gladly take your money and in return give you a link. And it's all going to be a little logo. Funny thing, sometimes there's sidelight links.
Yeah, on some of those old school sites, yeah. Is the amount of money that these local businesses, how should I ask this?
What the average sponsorship services?
Yeah, no, I would guess what I'm trying to get at is like, how much should people expect to pay? It sounds like it's going to be related to whatever their competitors are paying. So if you want to really, if you're in a crowded market, you're going to have to spend a little bit more.
Yeah.
Putting
Smaller organizations will take $250, $500 to like some more prominent organizations that have figured out the system. They're going to be like, okay, it's $2,500 a year, but that would be a really authoritative site. And you might get a home for $2,500.
Yeah. It's wild when you start to think about it that way. And I think that's something that, at least for me, was what it took a while to think about. You might spend, like when I was at the agency, it cost $5K, $10K for a campaign, right?
Yeah.
And if that campaign generates, say it costs $10K, generates 10 links, it's $1,000 a link.
Yeah.
Most most marketers think along the lines of cost per link because that's such an easy metric to but then if you're thinking outside the box, it's okay, I could maybe spend 10 grand sponsoring this thing that give me a lot of press. And then I get my 10 links through press naturally. It's just like such a different the
Those links would be
mindset.
a lot more expensive if you try to buy them.
Exactly. Yeah. And
So
that's what I'm
maybe
doing.
your
Yeah.
cost per link goes down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And also just, this is a fun one, just tip, all these sponsorships, they can be tax write-offs if the client pays for it.
I was doing I'm trying my taxes right now. And yes.
How many sponsorships did we give out?
Yes. Tax. How do you make a link building out of tax write-offs? Maybe that's a post I can.
Well, it's a charitable donation. So
Whatever.
you're
Those free
investing,
links.
yeah, you're supporting local youth teams. That's a big thing in Europe. I think in US too, just sports team sponsorships, they get big sponsorships from corporations. And then because of them sponsoring the sports teams, they get tax reliefs because of that. So instead of spending the money, like just paying tax, you have to pay on your profits. But instead of that, they're investing that as sponsorships. And now they're getting brand recognition through these sports organizations, and they're using them as platforms to build their audiences.
Yes. Yeah, I guess ultimately it's going to come down to how much time you have to devote to something like this, right? If I was a exterminator, I'm here in Greenwich, Connecticut. I want to start a new business. I don't have a ton of money. I want to understand. I know these tactics we're talking about. It would be great for me to go out and create a reactive campaign, digital, data driven, but I don't have the time. I'm killing bugs. I'm going door to door. But if you were to give tips, like advice to someone, your friend who was starting this, what are the first three most important things to do from an SEO perspective?
Most important thing is your local business profile, like the Google business profile. That's your gold mine, because especially for like services like exterminators, people are going to look at the map listings and they're going to read your reviews. So flushing out your profile with images, your logo, yourself, your team, your happy clients, you're already winning if you've done that. And then generating as many real reviews as you can, because now with AI, the authenticity of reviews and images, if your clients can add images on reviews, there's even a little plugin that lets you integrate the plugin in your website. So when people look at your reviews on a website, it pulls actually different locations where you did the jobs and shows the images, what you did. The review authenticity is massive. So that's number one. Number two, if you want to rank in those in map results, you're going to need directories. So just going through directories that you put in exterminator, Greenwich, see just what directories are ranking, because there's going to be a ton of them ranking. So getting all those directory links, then whatever other local ones you can figure out, that's starting point. And then start watching where your rankings are just with that itself. Greenwich, exterminator, semi-competitive. I haven't really analyzed that, sir, but I imagine you're going to need some little bit more authoritative links afterwards. So that's when you need to start getting a little bit creative. I think doing a little bit of local sponsorships would be a good starting point.
Just like the most bang for your buck, right? Like,
yeah.
And for at least.
Yeah. Because are you really going to go craft news stories yourself? Or I don't foresee this particular exterminator having, unless you're like a multi-city operation, you probably would have some budget for PR type of link building. But in this case, just local links would go, I think, relatively long. And then if you're still finding the gaps, I will talk to some SEO consultants to figure out, all right, what could be what else am I missing? But I think is you are getting reviews, you are getting directories. We would just need to figure out how to get a little bit of brand search as well. Because if you get the brand search, that almost serves better than links, because Google knows you're being recognized. Could be, I don't know. That's where you need to brainstorm a little bit more, see what competitors are doing. Maybe even PPC ads, OSA ads. Honestly, like if you're trying to get business, it's more about just actually getting the clients right away. Some people are just like, no, I want to build SEO. Okay, cool. But you could run some like social ads just to boost the brand search volume, some kind of creative campaign saying, hey, type in our domain and fill out the form rather than sending it to them. That's the extra layer. But I think just the three, like what anyone can do themselves, basic is Google Business Profile, reviews with images, obviously the optimizations, but it's not that hard. Have your primary category, your main service, and have your name listing accurate with your directories. Build the directories and then do some local sponsorships. I think that can go pretty long way. And you just need to track your results. Uses a GeoGrid rank tracker. If you need one, check out Track. We actually built our own. It just shows your map rankings in a certain proximity because the map rankings will differ based on wherever you are in Greenwich. Google's smart enough to tell you, like, why would you travel across the entire city to someone nearby? Also, exterminator is kind of service area based businesses, so it might be a little bit different. You don't really need to go to their office. They come to you. But still, those are smaller things.
The pro tips, man. Yeah, that's great. Chris, this has been super, super helpful. I want to leave listeners with kind of one more thing, and it's just your take on this. So like I mentioned this at the very beginning, this idea that there seems to be a lot of potential for local businesses to be pitching local news sites. Now, I heard something yesterday from another podcast guest that made me think back twice about this, where he was saying in a lot of cases, the local news sites might be more taxed in terms of they're overloaded. It's less people working and there's more news to cover. But still, there are just so many local news sites nationwide. So if you are a larger company that has, like your rental company or something that has local areas, local Hertz or something all nationwide, it still feels like pitching to local news seems to be a lot of potential. Do you think there's a lot of links to be had from local news, I guess is my question in a nutshell?
No, I totally get your point. And when I started with digital PR, I thought that's like the go-to move, just connecting our clients with the local journalists. But the reality is, it's super hard to have this highly relevant message for them to talk about.
That doesn't feel commercial.
Yeah, if they don't really care that you're in Miami and the journalists in Miami, unless you have something highly relevant to, like, the core concepts you talked about don't really change.
Right.
Now, what you could do is you could do some advertorials. That could work. Maybe some kind of in-person news segments. You can try to develop that. I've seen some of our clients work with news stations to be on certain segments on consistent basis. And they become like this ongoing guest of whatever show. But that costs money. It's a little bit different type of link building. You're not really per se pitching PR story. You're just now working with a local news station. You're saying, hey, I want to advertise on the local news station. What can you do for me?
So it sounds like it's more opportunistic when you're thinking about local news if you're in that area, unless there's an opportunity or you're creating one based off of a reactive idea that you're connecting the dots. You shouldn't rely on it solely for links. You gotta be thinking about other.
Also, it's already hard to pitch just journalists in one state. Now, if you try to pitch journalists just in one city, you're just like, your chances of getting picked up get super slim unless you really have something highly irrelevant. But that goes back to the whole concept of relevance of the story to get that story picked up. But yeah, we love the local news stations, but we don't isolate them out just for specific kind of story unless it's like the Uber ride giveaway or turkey drives or backpack giveaway, that highly locally relevant activity you're doing, that makes a lot of sense. And to them, oh, that's great. Okay, let's promote this. But if there is no real direction or value of what you're pitching, what are you going to really pitch? What story? Why? Because we're both in agreement. No one cares.
Yeah, gets back to what we said earlier. It's just, you need that story. There's got to be a good story.
Now, Vince, what you will find out is that there are companies that sell links on those local sites. We all know about that world of the SEO. And I think there's a lot more now, these high top tier type of link building vendors that have found contributor weird authoring systems. And you can find those type of link buying opportunities. Like that's out there. Then the local play becomes a lot more relevant because now, hey, $1,500 and here's your link.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see the next couple years, like how some of this shakes out. I just don't have as much faith in those types of links these days, just because I feel like someone's getting smarter at sniffing those out. But the behind the scenes partnerships and really handshake deals that some of these publications have, they got to make money somehow. If that's the way they're doing it, then yeah, seems like the natural way to go is probably better in the long run anyway. The sponsorships, the local charity giveaways and stuff.
I think we're seeing the team more and more that SEO is becoming more as a brand building activity. And we're just trying to build a brand with additional effects that are links and brand search volume that's going to help your actual rankings, because people, at least in local SERP, the ones ranking are the ones that are being recognized in real life. And first time I heard this was from Blake Denman. He's huge in local SEO. He's one of the OGs, so to say. And he said this to me, I think 4 or 5 years ago. And yeah, it's so true. What people search in real life is what Google's gonna rank. If you're recognized in real life, you're gonna rank in maps. You're gonna rank in the local space. And not unfortunately, but the reality is, it's a lot of the big advertisers, the billboard attorneys, the billboard contractors, the ones with TV ads. They will also own the map results. But that's where we can come in with some creative ideas and campaigns to level the playing field.
Yeah, level the playing field. That's what it's all about. I think that's probably a good place to stop, Chris. I want to thank you again. This has been awesome. I just want to remind everyone to like, subscribe, share a comment, rate the podcast, interact with this stuff. If you have any questions for Chris about any of this, I'm sure you'll be more than happy to answer them. You can find Chris on LinkedIn. He's most active there, maybe sometimes on X, mainly on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I'll be linking to all this stuff in the show notes that we talked about today. And again, big thanks to Chris for taking the time to talk about local SEO and local link building with us. I really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure, Vince. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me or our digital PR director. I'm just a cheerleader. She's the one really working behind the scenes, Carla Fernandez. She's done a lot of this amazing work.
Shout out. Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, yeah, thank you all for listening and good luck out there.